April 5, 1923. Cairo, Egypt. George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, is dying. A tiny mosquito bite on his cheek, accidentally sliced open while shaving, has become a raging infection. Blood poisoning has taken hold, leading to a fatal pneumonia. He drifts in and out of consciousness, muttering a single haunting phrase. "I have heard the call. I am preparing." At precisely 1:55 a.m., Lord Carnarvon dies. And at that exact moment, two impossible things happen. The entire city of Cairo is plunged into total darkness as the power grid mysteriously fails. Miles away, back at his ancestral home in England, his beloved fox terrier Susie, who had shown no signs of illness, lets out a final howl and drops dead. These events would be dismissed as a bizarre, tragic coincidence, except for one crucial fact. Just 5 months earlier, Lord Carnarvon had committed what some called the ultimate act of desecration. He had financed and stood beside archaeologist Howard Carter as they broke the seal on the 3,200-year-old untouched tomb of the boy king Tutankhamun. Newspapers around the world had already been whispering about a pharaoh-esque curse that promised death to any who disturbed the king's eternal rest. Now, with the death of the expedition's patron, the whispers became a roar. Was this a string of eerie coincidences? Or was Lord Carnarvon just the first victim of an ancient curse, a supernatural guardian awakened from its slumber? To understand the curse, you must first understand the obsession. By the early 1900s, Egypt's Valley of the Kings, the magnificent royal cemetery of the pharaohs, was thought to be exhausted. For over a century, archaeologists had dug up its secrets, and treasure hunters had plundered its riches. The consensus was that there was nothing left to find. But one man refused to believe it. Howard Carter was a brilliant, stubborn, and deeply obsessive English archaeologist. He had spent his life in the dust of Egypt, and he was consumed by a single theory, that one pharaoh, a minor boy king named Tutankhamun, who ruled for only a decade, was still out there, his tomb missed by looters and archaeologists alike. Carter's obsession needed a patron, and he found one in Lord Carnarvon, a wealthy British aristocrat and amateur Egyptologist. For 7 long, grueling seasons, Carnarvon's money funded Carter's search. They dug trench after trench under the brutal Egyptian sun, finding little more than pottery shards and disappointment. By 1922, Carnarvon's patience and his fortune had run out. He summoned Carter and told him it was over. This would be their final season. On November 4th, 1922, with just weeks to go, Carter's crew was clearing out some ancient workers' huts when they hit something solid. It was a single cut step leading down into the bedrock. Carter's heart pounded. He ordered the team to clear the staircase. After days of painstaking work, they revealed a sealed doorway stamped with the intact necropolis seals of ancient Egypt. It had not been breached. Carter sent a telegram to Carnarvon. At last had made wonderful discovery in Valley. A magnificent tomb with seals intact. We covered same for your arrival. Congratulations? When Carnarvon arrived weeks later, they opened the door. Carter, holding a candle, peered into the darkness. Carnarvon, unable to wait, asked, "Can you see anything?" Carter turned, his eyes wide with disbelief, and uttered the most famous words in the history of archaeology. "Yes, wonderful things." The discovery was the greatest archaeological find of all time. The antechamber was filled with golden chariots, gilded couches, and treasures beyond imagination. But as the world celebrated, a dark narrative began to take shape. The story of the curse, once a fringe theory, took hold after Lord Carnarvon's dramatic death just 5 months after the opening. And he was just the beginning. The list of deaths connected to the tomb began to grow, each one adding another chapter to the legend. First, George J. Gould, a wealthy American financier who visited the tomb in 1923, developed a high fever on his voyage home and died. Then, Prince Ali Kamil Fahmy Bey of Egypt, who had also visited the tomb, was shot and killed by his wife in London. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, the radiologist who x-rayed the mummy, died from a mysterious illness in 1924. A.C. Mace, a crucial member of Carter's excavation team, who helped clear the tomb, died in 1928 from pneumonia, complaining of exhaustion and weakness for years. Richard Bethel, Howard Carter's personal secretary, was found dead in his bed in 1929, suspected of being smothered. His father, Lord Westbury, devastated by his son's death, then took his own life. The note he left reportedly read, "I really cannot stand any more horrors and I gladly welcome the end." The list went on. By the end of the decade, more than a dozen people who had been present at the opening or were closely connected to the excavation had died, many from fevers, infections, or in strange, violent circumstances. The curse of the pharaohs was no longer a whisper. It was a global headline. A 3,000-year-old curse reaching from the grave to strike down its violators. It's a terrifying and romantic story. But science offers a different, though no less fascinating, explanation. The curse, scientists argue, may have been biological. A sealed tomb is the perfect petri dish. For over 3 millennia, bacteria, fungi, and dangerous molds like Aspergillus niger could have grown on the walls, the burial offerings, and even the mummy itself. When Carter's team broke the seal, they could have released a cloud of these dormant, toxic spores. Inhaling them could lead to severe allergic reactions, respiratory infections, and pneumonia symptoms that match many of the deaths. The tomb's guardian wasn't a spirit. It was microscopic. And then there's the simple power of statistics and media hype. A 2002 study tracked the lives of the 44 Westerners identified as being in Egypt when the tomb was opened. It found that the 25 who were present for the opening had an average lifespan of 70 years. The ones who weren't present lived to an average of 75. The difference was statistically insignificant. People died because people in the 1920s died of things like infection and pneumonia, especially in foreign climates. It was the newspapers that truly built the curse. Carter and Carnarvon had signed an exclusive deal with the Times of London, shutting out every other journalist. Furious, rival papers latched onto the curse narrative. Every time someone even remotely connected to the dig died, it became a sensational front-page story, feeding a public hungry for a tale of ancient magic and revenge. But even with science and statistics, some things remain unexplained. The citywide power outage at the exact moment of Carnarvon's death has never been accounted for. Nor has the simultaneous death of his dog, thousands of miles away in England. And then there's the biggest anomaly of all, Howard Carter. The man who spent more time in the tomb than anyone, who breathed its air for a decade, lived on for another 16 years, dying of lymphoma at the age of 64. Why would a curse so ruthlessly efficient with others spare its primary target? So we are left with two realities. The first is a world of logic, a series of tragic but explainable deaths, amplified into a legend by a sensationalist press and a public eager to believe in ancient magic. The second is a world of shadows, where a few key events, the dying words, the power outage, the dog defy all rational explanation, leaving the door open just enough for the supernatural to creep in. Perhaps the true curse of the pharaohs was never about a supernatural force. Perhaps the curse was a single-minded obsession that drove Carter for years. Perhaps it was the curse of colonialism, of wealthy Westerners feeling entitled to the treasures of another nation's past. Or perhaps the most powerful curse of all was the story itself. The narrative of dark magic and ancient revenge became so powerful, so compelling, that it has almost completely overshadowed the incredible scientific and historical achievement of the discovery. We remember the curse more than we remember the treasure. In the end, it may not matter if the tomb was protected by a spirit or by spores. The story we chose to tell became its own form of magic, an immortal legend born from a golden tomb. And it proves that while we can excavate the past, we can never truly escape its power. The tomb of Tutankhamun gave us a glimpse of the past, but what happens when an ancient artifact gives us a glimpse into the future? If you are captivated by the mystery of the pharaoh's curse, you must learn about the Nostradamus manuscript, the cryptid book that claims to predict events centuries before they happen.